Basically very similar to what we've done before, but now we need to do it for the whole bustier. So if you have cuts, you need to drape each individual piece. That's why I was telling you, had too many. Where'd she go? Daniela, delicious. We are on video now. That's why I was telling her that she has way too many pieces because it's going to be a lot time consuming. It's not that you drape everything and then you put cuts in the middle. It's each piece on its own because each one of them is going to have the shape of the fit of the garment and the design. So after we put the tape on it, mine is a little temperamental, it doesn't want to stick, okay? You need to make sure that you are following the proportions of your original design. That's why I keep telling you that you need to have your board of your original design because it shouldn't be from the top of your head, okay? Your head plays a lot of games. You might think that it's on the waist and then you look at the picture, oh no, it's a little bit longer, a little bit shorter. A pattern maker needs to make a faithful pattern of the original design. In that I have no dealing, business, compromise, convincing on it. I'm going to look at your original design and I'm going to look at what you're doing and it needs to look identical, but in real life. Okay? Are we okay with this? Okay, on video, everybody's nodding. So I have proof in here. So what is the first thing that we do when we drape? We cut a piece of fabric, and you always want to leave at least maybe 3 or 4 fingers at the top, at the bottom, and on either side of each piece. So I went and put a piece about this much, right? That looks pretty good, and I'll be able to fold this over so I will have the front and the side front. I'm not gonna do the whole thing because the back is the same process, okay? After you drape the front, you're always gonna drape from the center front out. We're gonna do it up to the side, then we're gonna go into the back. You're not gonna continue draping. You're gonna do it from the center back to the side. Then we're going to repin everything. As you guys noticed when we did the bust caps, we kind of walked it a few times every time we pinned it. And then after it's pinned completely, that's when we're gonna make corrections, okay? I don't wanna make corrections of only the front and only the back because we don't walk this way or this way. We walk three-dimensionally, okay? So how it fits on the front, it depends how it closes in the back or backwards. So you need to see the full garment on the body. If your designs, which I think all of you are symmetric, we can do only half of the dress form. If your garment is asymmetric, then you need to drape the right and the left, not just half of it, okay? And that's why I was trying not to, for you guys to have asymmetric garments because it would take a lot longer, okay? Everybody okay so far? Okay. So, what would be the first thing that I do to my fabric after I measure it and I cut it?
Block it.
Before that, press it. Lots of steams. Press it. Okay? Then we can block it. You can block it before because when you steam it, then it's going to change shapes. So, blocking it, I place it right here on the end of the table, and it looks horrible, right? So I'm going to pull it diagonally on the bias. You can tilt the phone a little bit if you need to
No, I got you.
see the tape. Okay. And now it looks beautissimous. Yes? Okay. So to remind you guys, because I've seen that quite a few of you have forgotten this, I'm going to now, actually what I'm going to do is, before I go any farther, I'm going to make my grain line on the side front piece. Because if I cut off the selvage, then I have no reference to measure it. Okay? So Anybody see my pencil? Here. So I'm going to measure from the selvage. How much should I measure? This amount. I don't say these numbers because you guys are going to try to follow the same number, and it doesn't apply to everything. I just need to make sure that this 3 measurements, this distance, is even from the selvage. And then I have my grade line. So for the front, I'm going to cut off the selvage. You'll remember that, right? Only one, and then I'm going to press it in 1 inch. Okay? Do not use the raw edge of the fabric on the center front or center back. Okay? Now, I'm going to, let's see if this is enough. Yeah, that's enough. So I'm going to cut it here, and I'm going to rip it. So am I ready to go draping? Yes, it is a tricky question.
I think so.
No, I just ripped it. I need to press it again because it's pulling. I told you it was a trick question. Now that I pressed it, I'm going to come here and check if it's blocked again. Because when you rip it, it kind of stretches out, okay? So, now that I have this very stubborn tape here, should stay like that. I should have put pins here, but I'm gonna put because the tape is not sticking. Okay, so I'm going to come in here. Well, I'm going to place the bust cups that we did. And you need to have your bust cups placed first because this is kind of my explanation. What if you go shopping for a closed pair of shoes and you try them on without socks and then you get home and you put on gym socks? How does that fit? Tight, right? So what's going to happen to your breast if that happens? They're going to be overspilling, right? And that shouldn't happen here, even though some people would like that, but not in this class. Okay? So I'm going to place the fabric right exactly on the center front, and remember that the pins always should be from the outside in. And you're going to, can you see this? Mm-hmm. Or I need to turn a little bit more.
Okay.
And I'm going to pin only where the bustier is. Okay? So here there is no bustier, so I'm not going to pin it. And you guys are going to see why is that important. So don't go ahead and get pin excited and start pinning it all the way up to the neck when it's actually strapless. Okay? So, what are the most prominent points on this bustier? The apex. So let's start there, the bust. So without pulling it too much that it starts gapping right here on the center front, I'm going to stretch the fabric until the princess seam, because that's what I'm following on my design. If in your design you have a cut somewhere else, you're going to put it all up to that point. So what would be the next most important landmark? You guys can't see anything behind me. Why are you learning from there? Come over here, come sit here. Okay, so what would be the next prominent point in here? Huh? The waist. So now I'm going to pull it up to the waist. okay? Now, when you get to the waist, you see how all of that is pulling? So I'm gonna get the scissors, I'm gonna snip up to about an inch there. And you're gonna see that when this is laying, see how it opens up? Right? That's what it's supposed to be doing. You can't see anything from there. Anyway, what would be the next prominent place? Under the bust. Because the apex goes out and then it comes in, right? So I'm gonna go right under the bust. See how it's pulling? So now I'm going to do the same. I'm gonna snip it up to there. So let me cut some of this so you guys can see what I'm doing. So now I can go ahead and continue doing the rest of the seam. Here, probably I can put a couple of pins. I don't have to put a lot of them. And I don't know about you guys, but I like to do the easy parts first and the complicated at the end. So the hip will be the easiest part. So I'm going to stretch it out up to the end. And I will not put any pins across here. I know that some of you like to put pins here. Every time you put a pin here, you're holding this area in place. So in other words, when you take the pins out, this is much wider than what you needed. So if we stretch it out, then you can see that this is flushed to the dress form. Are we okay? Okay. One thing that before I forget, you need to remember how you're gonna wear this bustier. If you're going to tuck it in, it can be really fitted like the dress form. But if you're going to have a garment underneath, shorts, pants, skirts, whatever it is, from underneath, then that is going to have some bulkiness. So when we transfer the pattern into paper, we need to add a little fullness to give room to that undergarment. Otherwise, it's not going to close. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's continue with the bust cup. So I'm going to go right here under, and I'm going to put all the pins that go on the under the bust. And then I'm going to continue on the top of the bust. So let me just make sure I follow the princess seam. I keep pulling here. Look at what's happening. As I'm pulling it and going across the neckline, this center front line is separating from the center from the dress form. That is exactly what you're supposed to have. Okay? There is nothing wrong with that. If you actually pinned it outside of the garment, that line is not going to move, and then it's not going to fit properly. This is what it needs to happen. Okay? So I'm going to stretch it out here. And I'm going to adjust the rest of the seam until it lays flat. Notice that it ruffles and it bubbles on the outside. I don't care what happens outside. The only thing I care is what's happening on that line. Yes? Okay. Voila. So remember when we did the bust cup, we measured inside the ribbon tape. My tape is much thinner than yours, okay? So it's just much easier, but I see that some of your tapes are pretty wide. When you do the top and the bottom of the bustier, you're gonna mark on the outside of the tape line. But when you follow, let's say that I have a cut right here, okay? If I mark this piece on the left side of that tape, when I make the next piece, I'm gonna mark it on the same side of that tape. Because if you mark on one side of the tape on one piece and then on the other side of the tape, then whatever the width of the tape, you're making your garment too small. Does that make sense? Okay. So I'm gonna mark the neckline here. I'm going to mark the princess seam here. Yes, I am very tall. And here I'm marking exactly on the princess seam. And then here I'm marking the bottom of the piece. So what am I missing here?
Notches.
Notches. Where would I put it?
Apex. 2 inches above, 2 inches below.
Perfect. Okay. So apex, 2 inches above, 2 inches below. I'm not gonna get too attached to that because when I walk it, I might need to readjustment. All right. But the one that I will, there's one more that I need to do that I really am going to get attached to.
The waist.
The waist. So see that you have this ribbon? I know that some people like to drape and mark the top and the bottom of the ribbon. We don't like to do that. Why? Because 2 notches signify the back. And you are not going to be flipping it from the front to the back, the 2 notches. So always mark the bottom of the white ribbon. If your dress form, because I see some of the dress forms do not have ribbon, and I'm actually looking at that first one, you can see that white ribbon is actually not diagonal. Make sure you align it before you start draping, okay? So I'm gonna mark the bottom of the tape. So now I take all the pins out. And as we did before, we're gonna clean up. You can tilt it a little?
Yeah, I see.
Okay. So remember, this connects the center front right and left. So I need 90 degrees here. Here is a sweetheart, so I don't need 90 degrees. Okay? I'm gonna clean up all my lines. Most of them, they would be curved, so probably this will help. Notice here, I'm going to the hip, but then on the waist, I'm not gonna have a corner, so I flip my ruler. This area looks to me straight. And then under the bust, I don't know, I keep thinking of the Little Mermaid every time I say under the bust. Now you guys are gonna have a song on your head. And then from here to the top, just keep turning the ruler until you have the shape that you want. I know that some of you are draping and right here on top of the breast, it kind of curves in, right? You need to clean it up straight because you don't want to dip on top of your breast. It's gonna make your breast look that saggy and look too low. Okay, so just have a nice size rounded. Somebody had it and I helped you correct that. I don't remember who it was.
How come we're doing the bust including the panel?
Say it again?
How come we're doing the bust and the panel? How come we're like not cutting it before the bust?
Because my design is one single piece. The bustier, the bust cup underneath is up to here, but the bustier is all one single panel.
And if the design is under the bust, so you can stop it there.
If you, right, you will have to drape up to here and then do this piece in the bottom. Yes. In your case, you have that seam across horizontal, so you will have to drape the front, the top, the bottom, and then the panels at the bottom. Each one individually. So I'm gonna add 1/2 inch seam allowance, even though when I transfer my pattern, I'm gonna do 1/4. And you guys remember why we did that? So we have the possibility to make any adjustments and not run out of fabric. and we're gonna trim all the excess fabric out, okay? Don't repin it with all of that bunch of fabric extra inside. Cut it off. Okay, and here I have the center front. If you guys want to label it, I'm gonna call it center front. I highly encourage you guys to make sure you have a grain line. We know it's the center front, so that's why I don't do that. And you also label them, especially like in your case, you have the upper one, the bottom one, and then all the other ones here, right? You don't want to have them out and then not know which one belongs to where. So now we're gonna do the side front. Delish. So again, since I ripped this fabric, I'm going to press it. And turn it off and turn it back